Well, hello, everyone. I'm Bob Bowman, Executive Director of Supply Chain Brain, and I want to welcome you to this special webinar presentation on the global parcel tsunami is here. Can your cross-border supply chain ride the wave? Presented by PeerBridge. One quick housekeeping note before we get started. We will have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation, so audience members indeed are encouraged to submit questions at any point during the presentation, and we will address them at the end. Now, we have an excellent speaker for you today. We're going to be hearing from Bob Malley. For over 25 years, Bob has helped thousands of businesses reduce costs and streamline logistics with transportation software solutions. As Managing Director of PeerBridge, Inc., Bob has built an international organization that has successfully established Transstream as the industry-leading parcel TMS platform that powers some of the largest shipping operations in the world. Prior to founding PeerBridge, Bob was CEO of Keywill, now Blue Jay Systems, where he managed ERP, logistics, and e-commerce lines of business. He was a founding member of the Agile Network, a global consortium of TMS solution providers. Bob started his logistics technology career as founder and CEO of Tracer Research, where he led the development of Clippership, the longtime gold standard for innovative parcel carrier management solutions. Now, Bob will be joined in conversation today by Scott Moore, Vice President of Marketing with PeerBridge. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Scott. Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Bob. Really appreciate the introduction and the kind words. Our Bob, PeerBridge Bob, spoke on a panel back in February on the state of global parcel shipping with one of our technology partners, ConnectShip. There were speakers from all parts of the world, from companies with a truly global footprint. Without giving our talk today a disaster movie theme, the consensus was that shippers are facing a global parcel tsunami. This worldwide giant parcel wave will particularly impact e-commerce and retail shippers and the 3PLs that support them. And shippers need to be able to ride this wave. Now, the global supply chain is not new. And what is new is the willingness of consumers to buy online from outside of their country. This has a compounding effect on the traditional movement of commodities, from manufacturer to intermediary to distribution and warehousing to storefronts and ultimately into the hands of the end consumers. Now, Bob will get into some of the data a little more deeply in the coming slides, but here's roughly what we're going to cover today. First, we'll talk about cross-border e-commerce, which is growing with no end in sight. Next, we'll highlight some of the challenges this is giving retailers and e-merchants who are struggling to navigate more complex cross-border processes. And lastly, we'll talk about some of the parcel cargo chain solutions that you can leverage to ride the parcel tsunami. I'll pass things over to Bob, our Bob, PeerBridge Bob, to take us through some of the data we're seeing in the growth of cross-border e-commerce and delivery.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. And welcome everybody to the webinar. Scott mentioned about the shift really to intercompany or intercountry online purchases. And while everybody knows that e-commerce is expanding worldwide and obviously a force in the economy, I think it's taken a lot of people by surprise that online shoppers are tending to buy from other countries more at an increasing rate. Here's some of the statistics. Worldwide e-commerce sales are about $3 trillion, which is still only about 13.7% of the total retail market, which is online retail market, the retail market, which is $20 trillion. And if you look at the U.S., online retail is about $600 billion. China is about a third more than that at $800 billion. So it's just a very robust industry. But still is 13.7% of total retail, it's clear that there's a lot of headroom for growth. And growth is happening on a yearly basis. We're really seeing that get started. It's estimated that online purchases will reach 17.5% of retail, or 4.5 trillion by 2021. So that if you're in the e-commerce business and you're in the logistics business, is motivation to figure out how to facilitate worldwide movement of these purchases. According to Armstrong and Associates, cross-border purchases are growing about twice the rate of domestic purchases. And so Forrester Research says cross-border is going to represent about 20% of all online purchases within the next 3 years. So as Scott had mentioned before, shippers better buckle up for the parcel tsunami because in many ways the shipments are getting smaller and more frequent, and they're coming across border. And part of that is that it's easier than ever for consumers in one country just to get on their phone and order goods in another country. And it's just as easy for merchants to sign up, put up a marketplace online and sell their goods worldwide, which is kind of seen as a democratization of global commerce. It used to be the purview of only large companies, and now really any company of any size can do it. About 4 years ago, this came to roost with me. My wife is a potter, and she ordered some molds, pottery molds from India. And I thought, okay, well, knowing parcel shipments the way that I do, it might get here in a month or two. And it showed up about 2 weeks later. A DHL truck pulled up to the door and handed her, this small little parcel, and she was happy, and it exceeded her expectations. So that's the kind of thing that's going on worldwide and at an increasing rate. So now the statistics are that 49% of U.S. shoppers will have bought something online this year, and that's up 5% from last year. So the numbers are even higher in smaller markets like Ireland, where 84% of online shoppers are more inclined to buy from another country. And, that plays out through the rest of the world. Now, all these statistics point to a trend that is really, truly transforming global logistics to keep up with customer demand for cross-border delivery to their door. So the next trend we're seeing is the worldwide expansion of what is known as today the B2B2C model, and that's a model that really describes business from their own inventory to customers. It's partnering with other ship inventory on their behalf. So that's grown quite a bit. And can everybody hear me?
You were breaking up a bit, Bob. Maybe you might have been moving a little bit, but you're good.
Okay. Okay. So it's easy to think, I guess, with the financial news coming out about Sears and Toys R Us, Bon-Ton, that there's a retail problem, when there really isn't. At more than $20 trillion, retail is growing. So there isn't a retail problem. There's really a real estate problem. Too many brick-and-mortar companies and too much space, real estate space, where the action is really internet at virtual stores. But brick-and-mortar retailers are taking a page from large marketplaces and playbooks. They're implementing omni-channel fulfillment strategies, where they're turning the brick-and-mortar stores into mini distribution centers. Today, taking orders only online and shipping from stores closest to their consumers is really following the lead of marketplaces who have been doing that for years with their fulfillment centers. So even though 22% of retailers consider omni-channel a top priority, according to Penske, only 4% of retailers said omni-channel execution was high performing, where 38% said it was inconsistent at best, and 36% it was really non-existent. So there's a great deal of room for improvement. But as we talk to our partners at JDA and IBM and Manhattan, it's clear that they see the demand for omni-channel fulfillment, selling more ship-from-store solutions, ship-from-supplier solutions than ever. So all this winds up to a scenario where marketplaces are still driving retailers to emulate their endless aisle model, which is shipping from inventory held by others, by suppliers and by drop shippers. Now, this is what's called the B2B2C model, where both suppliers and manufacturers work together to orchestrate fulfillment and direct delivery from really wherever the inventory is to the final mile, final consumer. Now, a lot of suppliers, it's not just a domestic phenomenon, a lot of suppliers hold inventory in other countries. So if you combine this with the increase of cross-border purchases, or as a result, really, of cross-border purchases, you can see why there has been a real surge in cross-border last-mile logistics. It's really an environment where everybody's really shipping anywhere to anyone in the world. So all of that has amounted to a surge in parcel activity. You know, the combination of consumers buying online, buying across borders, and the trend towards B2B2C fulfillment has resulted in more frequent and smaller orders being shipped worldwide. And shift, from full containers to stores to small packages direct to consumers from the port. So the impact of e-commerce can be seen in the growth, directly in the growth of the parcel shipping market. So some of the statistics are really telling. The first statistic my go-to statistic now is CSCMP's annual report, State of Logistics report. And this year, actually this month, they reported that parcels grew by 8.7% over last year to 105 billion for 2018. What was really interesting to me was not just the statistic, but the fact that CSCMP has, over the last few years, mentioned parcel at all. They didn't used to. And for someone like me who's been in the parcel technology business for my adult life, it was very gratifying to see them do that. And it speaks to the movement of parcel as a very dominant transportation mode. It used to be tucked under freight numbers somewhere, and trying to stick through it was an interesting exercise, even though they tracked gas pipeline market, which was about half the size. So globally, the parcel market grew last year 12% to 380 billion. A lot of that industry growth is driven by China. Last year, China's parcel volume grew about 28%. And the average Chinese person receives 70 parcels on average every year. Well, the average delivery to Americans is about 21 parcels per person. Germany, 24. UK, 22. So McKinsey expects global parcel volumes to top 100 billion parcels. 100 billion, that's just hard to even conceive of, in 2020. So in addition to parcel, local delivery carriers are starting to fill the gap for the demand for same day and next day delivery from stores and local inventory sources. So we're seeing a surge in not just freight trucks, but small messenger services. Companies like Deliv entering the fray with group-sourced deliveries. It's a very robust market. So today consumers are more apt to buy mattresses and appliances online, sight unseen, which I did a few months ago, and they came with one truck, delivered the box, slid it open, and the mattress exploded, and formed before my very eyes. But I don't know that in years gone by I would have bought a mattress without, trying it out in the store. So last mile has really become, in many ways, last inch. The other indication we see of parcel is just we're seeing, many more requirements for, I'll call them enterprise shipping tasks, where in years gone by, ClipperShip, first system that I built, was a point solution sitting at the back of a warehouse processing shipments coming down a conveyor line. Transstream is, with Transstream we're being asked to ship from stores, ship from suppliers, supplier portals, fulfillment centers, desktop offices, mail centers, to help manage, the burgeoning parcel market. So that's what we see with parcels. Scott?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bob. I find that the growth of e-commerce in places like China is almost surprising. I wouldn't have thought it. Some great insights there into cross-border e-commerce and delivery currents and trade winds that are affecting shippers. I'm not surprised that a third of retailers and 3PLs struggle with global logistics or struggle to implement omni-channel endless aisle or B2B to C supply chain models. Let's dig in on some additional challenges they're facing. Customs compliance, where the rules in every country are different. Systems integration, where many modes and different systems are in play. And seamlessness. This ensures the visibility and consistency across the parcel journey. Over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Scott. We'll start with custom compliance, and that's probably the obstacle that is, the biggest obstacle for most retailers and also for logistics service providers. The complexity and the difficulty of clearing through customs is nothing new. Forever we've had to properly classify goods and file documents for customs clearance. It's always been complex, and it's always been country by country in terms of regulation compliance. If you add to that the 9/11, out of 9/11 came, Homeland Security compliance requirements related to restricted party screening, embargoed country screening. You can understand why 39% of retailers today list customs compliance as their top global challenge, followed by global tracking and returns. We didn't mention returns, but returns is something that we're also seeing on the parcel side as far as our platform goes, where companies want to try to automate that process. So the reverse logistics aspect of the Parcel Tsunami is coming home to roost. So the wave of smaller shipments bound for residential consignees are hitting the border every day, and that's really made what was once pretty traditional difficulties much more difficult just by sheer volume. Now, recently, U.S. Customs tried to alleviate some of the processing of the small parcels by raising the so-called de minimis threshold from $200 to $800. Now, de minimis is the value under which goods can cross border tax-free and duty-free, and with more minimal customs paperwork. This has certainly helped speed parcels through customs, but the qualifications for that change. They're not totally understood by shippers, and although it's reduced the paperwork and I'll call it red tape in customs, it's resulted in a lack of visibility to what is actually being shipped across borders. So for goods to meet the de minimis threshold, or that don't meet that fall above the de minimis threshold, of course, duties and taxes still apply. This makes landed cost calculations a huge challenge for retailers. They need to really know at time of order taking what those costs are up front so they can quote them, or they can bake them into their, take account of them when calculating their margins. But they need to be accurately classified and calculated based on a country-by-country basis, which makes it very difficult. Now, landed cost calculations are further challenged by, transportation cost variations that depend on how cartons are packed, how they're loaded on pallets, and how they're consolidated into containers. So really, without cartonization technology, total cost quotations amount to guesses, which can lead to lost customers if you guess too high, or lost margins if you guess too low. Of course, technology is emerging that allows this to happen almost instantaneously with algorithms. The expertise about arcane custom compliance rules have traditionally been contained in the heads of freight forwarders and who retailers and 3PLs have turned to for help in helping to facilitate cross-border movement. Which brings us to the multimodal systems integration problem. So while freight forwarders have always been crucial, they've got the expertise attained over the years for facilitating cross-border movement. E-commerce shift to the B2C model is creating challenges for them because they're used to the older B2B model where they're consolidating loads from a port, moving them through customs, and generally just handing them off to freight carriers on the other end, call them to DCs, later ship to stores. Customers pick up the goods in stores. I guess you could think of that as the good old days of logistics. But today, cross-border e-commerce requires speed because customers expect speedy or on-time delivery. And they really don't want to have to care about where goods are coming from in the world or the complexity of getting them there. They can't really spell de minimis. I can barely spell it. So speed requires elimination of manual data entry. And I guess the dirty secret of global logistics is there's still a lot of data entry, manual data entry. And a lot of that still exists in global logistics because there are system silos. Manufacturers have ERP systems, suppliers have WMS systems, freight forwarders have global transport systems, customs run their own systems, and retailers, of course, have their own. Not all of them speak the same language or exchange or even have data available in the same way. And add to that the complexity that exists among modes are there. The data elements for air, ocean, rail, ground freight are all different from parcel, which has never managed to standardize formats because parcel carriers were really never regulated in the way that freight carriers were at one point. So each carrier's data needs to be normalized in some way, and there are some that think blockchain will be the answer for normalizing multimodal data sets. Good luck with that. I think that was always the promise of EDI. Getting thousands of carriers and other logistics entities to agree it will be an uphill battle. But there's also the element of time. As a parcel technology person, just dealing with freight forwarder systems people more often now. Time for parcel is of the essence. Seconds count. When you're booking an ocean container, time is not of the essence. So reconciling the processing times and sequences and cycles of the various modes and the systems that are needed to manage them effectively reflect those differences. So all of that means is multimodal integration is really, in many ways, the thing that's most obstructing what I'll call seamlessness. Achieving a seamless cross-border last-mile delivery experience is really the holy grail. Consumers shouldn't have to care at all about where the items came from, who handled them, and all the difficulties related to that. In other words, they don't want to see how the sausage is made; they just want to eat it. So, disparate carrier modes, disparate systems, all conspire to undermine the retailer's delivery promise. So in the end, it will take a village to execute a seamless first cross-border and last-mile delivery. And retailers, increasingly, 3PLs and freight forwarders are finding partners amongst themselves that most, meet their needs for meeting the on-time delivery promise. Scott?
Thanks, Bob. Clearly, retailers, customs, supply chain partners, they're all paddling against the current. Sometimes I'm amazed that anything gets delivered on time or at a reasonable cost at all. It's impressive your wife received that package from India in 2 weeks. There's a lot that would have had to go into that behind the curtain. And also surprised to see that the international e-commerce market just continues to grow and faces such strong resistance in those cross-border parcel trade routes. How are successful global shippers riding that wave? Bob, what are some of the first mile to last mile services and solutions that shippers are turning to?
Yeah, when we talk about the parcel cargo chain, it almost sounds like an oxymoron because we don't think of parcels as cargo. But when you think of it in terms of the realm of cross-border e-commerce, transportation modes, roles, and responsibilities are starting to blur over time. So these seamless solutions that immediately come to mind are those offered by, I would say the three giant global parcel carriers, UPS, FedEx, and DHL, who also manage their own freight forwarding operations. So they're parcel carriers who have the benefit of assets and systems that have, long since resolved the data handoff and the boots on the ground issues, faced by those that don't have an integrated operation. So in 2018, if you think about it, the big three had a combined revenue of $206 billion, moving almost 40 million packages per day. So unlike regional package delivery services or even the Postal Service, they all developed and acquired their own freight forwarding infrastructure to control the global movement of goods. I think by being in the business, by any measure, they come closest to providing retailers with a seamless experience, a one-stop shop, if you will, to deliver parcels across borders to the final destination. So I think the examples of those are probably well known to this audience, and that's UPS Trade Direct and World Services, as well as FedEx IPD and IDD services, and those all involve consolidating parcel loads at origin ports, managing the cross-border process, and clearing customs as a single entry. In another webinar, we may talk about the difficulties of that single entry for multiple consignees, but it's something that UPS, FedEx, and DHL have been able to leverage to their advantage, and they can do so under their own brand. They don't have to depend upon minimal dependence on other partners. So these types of international services have enabled them to grow as e-commerce has grown, and with so much more growth in sight, with online purchasing as a percentage of total retail, they're looking at a pretty bright future, even as other carrier services enter the market, including now those that are being deployed by large marketplaces that will not be named, and local delivery services that are starting to burge in the market. So the second set of solutions I would categorize as those offered by freight forwarders and 3PL solutions. So as compared to the parcel freight forwarder organizations, these solutions are offered by companies that have traditionally been only focused either on the 3PLs on domestic, or if they had a freight forwarder operation on cross-border. Now, the reason why this category I would predict will grow pretty robustly in terms of providing end-to-end is that studies have shown that retailers are looking to diversify their cross-border carrier service offerings. They don't want to risk putting all their eggs in one basket, or they want to provide a different sort of delivery experience by customer segment. So I think the statistic is 83% of high growth retailers use multiple carriers as opposed to 53% of low growth who kind of stick with a single carrier service. So it's clear that while the global parcel carriers have built out freight forwarding operations to handle cross-border, the question is, can freight forwarders move in the other direction? Can they supplement their cross-border expertise, build on that, and move inland and provide customers with last-mile delivery? At first glance, and what we're seeing in the market, the answer is yes. The reason is that, is based on basic economic principles. Markets abhor vacuums, and they will draw in innovative services to fill those gaps. So if you look at an air freight forwarder like Seiko Logistics, they kind of do what UPS and FedEx do, which is to consolidate parcel loads in the foreign ports, air transport them, move them through customs, and inject them into a variety of parcel networks for the last mile delivery. So they're in many ways carrier agnostic in terms of what the final delivery carrier is, which is, again, probably very appealing to retailers. Now, with their acquisition of Nugistics, Pitney Bowes offers a similar service where they consolidate and deconsolidate loads across borders. But with them, it became pretty natural for them to leverage their partnership with U.S. Postal Services and other postal authorities around the world to affect last-mile delivery. Now, all of these solutions require end-to-end control and using systems to track from first mile cross-border to last mile. Obviously, the global parcel carriers invested heavily in that sort of technology and boots on the ground. But freight forwarders show the same signs of making that investment. Now, what's helping with that, frankly, is the emerging existence of global transport logistics platforms. So to support freight forwarding and 3PL operations, these platforms are designed to do what the systems that some of the global carriers have, global parcel carriers have, and that is to manage first-mile transport, cross-border, and last-mile delivery. Because it's one platform, they're normalizing data sets, which was one of the challenges that have typically faced, many trying to do systems integration. Having one platform, it's more possible to normalize the data sets and digitize all the transactions that are necessary to provide end-to-end visibility and tracking with a minimal amount of data entry. So an example of this is actually our parent company, WiseTech Global. They've developed a cloud platform, CargoWise One, that is now used by 12,000 freight forwarders worldwide. 25 of the top 25 freight forwarders worldwide use it for one part of their operation or another, operate their business. So you think of these platforms in addition to sort of operating like an ERP system for freight forwarders, managing front and back office functions. They're also automating customs clearance, ocean air freight rating and booking, warehousing, drayage, all of it. But they've sort of answered the e-commerce call and are starting to provide or expand capabilities within the platform to move inland, both in terms of first mile and last mile, with the abilities to enable rating, shipping, and tracking of domestic ground transportation, including LTL and parcel. So that's really what has us excited about this area. We see the confluence of freight forwarding systems with traditional parcel shipping platforms, such as our own, as enabling companies to ride the wave of e-commerce and provide a seamless experience to the end user. And Scott?
Thanks, Bob. Glad to see that there are some solutions to the situation of that parcel tsunami and the challenges that is giving to shippers across the globe. And I think in those solutions, there's an opportunity to maybe not just remain competitive, but to turn shipping into a competitive advantage. Before I pass things back to our host, Bob, I just quickly wanted to thank the folks at Supply Chain Brain, Lorraine, who you haven't heard yet, but she's done a lot of miracles behind the scenes to make things happen seamlessly today, and for giving us that opportunity to share some of our thinking on the global supply chain. And mostly I wanted to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to us. If you're interested in PureBridge's ongoing parcel insights on global and other matters that we comment on, you can visit our website, purebridge.com, and sign up. We host our own parcel performance webinars on a regular basis. They're available in our resources area on demand. If you sign up, we'll let you know too when those are happening. If you also want us to assess your global supply chain and see if there's any opportunities for optimization, we're happy to do that. Or if you just want to see our cross-border shipping technology in action, you can reach out to us at parcelinsights@purebridge.com or call 508-630-1220. I can see that we have a few questions, so I'll pass things back over to Supply Chain Brain Bob to get to the questions and ask them of PureBridge Bob.
Thank you very much, Scott. Also, thank you, Bob Malley, for an excellent presentation. We do, in fact, have some questions here, but while we're answering them, I still want to encourage the audience, there's still time to post additional questions by clicking on the Q&A box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. So I'm going to start with this one. The question is, are freight forwarders who are not also parcel carriers moving out of their comfort zone to manage inbound transportation processes?
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I think with any shift in technology and in market shift, there will be those who adapt to change, and there are those who won't. So I mentioned Seiko and Pitney Bowes as examples of innovators in the cross-border parcel delivery space. There'll be others, but there'll also be laggards. And you can take a lesson from the omni-channel, the rollout of omni-channel strategies within the retail world, where there were those who waited and are now no longer with us because they didn't really recognize the new wave. I think we can also look at, as a startling example, really is Maersk announcing that they have plans. This was about a year ago. They announced they have plans to compete, move inland from being a ocean container company and freight forwarder to moving inland to compete with UPS and FedEx. So it's an indication that things aren't going to stay the same. They're going to move on, and there'll be winners and losers in the market.
All right, thank you very much. When injecting parcels into domestic carrier networks, when does the package labeling occur?
That's a good question. We originally thought that it might occur at the destination port. We thought that, once the load passed through customs and deconsolidated, that would be the point in a cross-docking operation where we would apply labels. But so far, the vast majority of these kinds of processes have labeling occurring at the origin port prior to consolidation. And that is true because of, I suppose, unique to air freight forwarding because of the time element. Ocean freight obviously is going to move a lot slower and won't keep up with the demand for deliveries to consumers. So we see it as labeling at the origin port.
Okay, thank you. Here's a good one. How accurate can landed cost actually be for orders that have not even been picked, packed, or containerized?
They can be estimated, but they won't be as accurate as they would be. I mentioned before the emergence of cartonization technology, where we take order data and determine what the most transportation cost-effective way of packing cartons, loading pallets, and loading containers. And there's a big difference in terms of what the transportation costs would be when optimized in that manner. So that's a way of ensuring that they would be more accurate than sort of any kind of rules of thumb, which is frankly how a lot of containerization happens today.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. If there were any questions that we did not get to, that the audience still would like answered. I'm sure that Bob would be happy to address them offline. But for now, I want to thank Bob Malley for that great presentation. I want to thank Scott Moore for engaging him in conversation and being with us as well. And I want to thank our excellent audience for listening in as well. So to everybody, have a great day.